Shalom to all. Today's office Yerushalmi Brachot Daf Mem Beis. We are starting Mem Aleph Amud Beis on the bottom with the brand new halacha, and in the Vilna Surah Hadaf it's Chav Ches Amud Aleph on the bottom with the brand new halacha. And today's office sponsor Lilu Nishmas Mars Miriam Sarah Basar Yaakov Moshe. Her neshama should have an aliyah. Now we're going to be discussing different forms of tuma, zav versus keri and nida. Now tuma, zav, and nida are more chumra than keri. However, there is one chumra that a Baal Keri has over a zav, and that's that a Baal Keri is not a learner daven before going to the mikveh, as we discussed previously, whereas a zav may. So Halacha Vav tells us, the Mishnah says, zav shara keri. A person was a zav, and then they became a Baal Keri. Or v'nida shapalta shechla zera. This is referring to a woman that had tashmish. After she had tashmish, she became a nida. Then she was pilot the shechla zera. The zera came out of her, and now she's talking Tomas Keri because of that zera. And in the third case, v'hamishameshes sharasa nida. A woman that was mishameshes, she had tashmish. The shechla zera came out of her. She became Tomas Keri, and then she became a nida. In all these cases, tzrich and tvila, they need tvila. Now the chiddush over here in the Tanakama is that even though this tvila doesn't remove them from their state of toma chamura, because they have a toma chamura of either nida or zav. However, since it's a Baal Keri, they're not allowed to learn or daven. This tevila helps for that aspect and allows them to learn or daven. However, if Rabbi paters them. And the Gemara says, Ad Kedain Zav Shira Keri. Up until now, meaning in the beginning of the Mishnah, we're discussing a zav, someone who's a very chomer level of toma, that then saw Keri, a lower level of toma. And in that case, we know that Rabbi argues. But what does Rabbi hold in the following case? Mem Beis Amud Aleph on the top, Vafilu Keri Shira Zav, Mail Hushu Taival. Let's say this person was first a Baal Keri, and then he became the higher level of toma zav. Would it help for him to go to the mikvah? Meaning, does Rabbi Yehuda argue in that case as well? Or does Rabbi Yehuda agree that he has to go to the mikveh in that case? Now the logic behind this question is as follows. We understand Shita's Rabbi Yehuda with a man that first was a zav and then became a Baal Keri. Well, when he was first a zav, he's not chayv in tevila regarding learning or davening, and therefore just because now he also became a Baal Keri, that doesn't mean he needs to be toivel. But what about if he was a Baal Keri, meaning he was already chayv in tevila, and then he became a zav? Maybe he still needs to be toivel in order to learn and daven. So our answer is Nishma and Ado. We can learn it from the following case of our Mishnah. The last case was Hamishamesh Shirasa Nida, a woman that was Mishamesh, she became Tomei with Tomas Keri, then she became a Nida. Tanakama of our Mishnah says Tzricha Tvila, she needs Tvila. Rav Yehuda Paiter was Rav Yehuda Paters. So you see that Rav Yehuda argues even in the case where they were first Tomei with a lower level of Toma, and then they became Tomei with a higher level of Toma, still there's no Chiv of Tvila. Now the Gemara asks the same question, just in a slightly different way. Ma tam Rav Yehuda. What's Rav Yehuda's reasoning that he paters this person from Tvila? Is it because Mishum Ma Mail Hushu Taival? What's it going to help if he goes to the mikvah? There's no purpose in this person being taival for their Tomas Keri if they already have on them a higher level of Toma, Nida or Zav, and therefore this immersion in the mikvah is not going to help them. Is that the reason why a Zav who became a Baal Keri doesn't have to go to the mikvah? Or is it because we just simply don't apply this lower level of Toma when we have an already stronger level of Toma present? What comes out from them? Meaning, what's the nafkamina between these two ways of looking at it? The nafkamina would be Ra Keri. At first he became a Baal Keri, a lower level of Toma, and then he became a Zav, a higher level of Toma. So in Tamar, if you want to say Ma Mail Shu Taival, what's it going to help if he taivels in this case? Mailhu, it would help if he taivels. Why is that? Because before he became a zav, he already had a chiv to be taivel because of his keri. And if he would have been taivel, it would have helped. So in Mela, even though he became a zav now, a higher level of toma, he would still have to be taivel for his keri. Then the Gemara answers this question, Hava, it is, meaning Shitas Rabbi Yehuda is, lest Hame Dolai Mishum She'ein Shem Toma Kala Eitzel Toma Chamura. His reasoning is that we don't apply a lower level of toma once we're dealing with a higher level of toma, even though the lower level of toma was present before the higher level of toma. And where do we get this from? Well, just like the Gemara had brought previously on the top of the Amud, from the last case in the Mishnah, Hamishameshes Shirasa Nida, a woman that was Mishameshes. So first she was Tamei Tomas Keri, and then she became Tamei Tomas Nida. Rabbi Yehuda argues even in that case, so we see that Rabbi Yehuda's Shita is that we do not apply a lower level of Toma once we're dealing with a higher level. And then based on the top, we ask the same question in yet another way. The Gemara says, Ad Kedain Kishabas Loi Toma Kala B'Saif. Up until now, we understand that Rabbi Yehuda argues with the Tanakama when the lighter Toma, the Tomas Keri, comes after the stronger Toma. But what about Afilu Bas Loi Toma Chamura B'Saif? Does he hold the same thing when the stronger Toma comes at the end and the lower level of Toma, the Keri, was present before the stronger level of Toma came? Would Rabbi Yehuda still argue and say that the person doesn't need to immerse before davening or learning? And once again, the Gemara answers, Nishmina Mirada. Let's learn it from the following case. The last case of the Mishnah was, Vamishameshes Rasa Nida, Tzricha Tvila. The Tanakama says she needs Tvila. Rabbi Yehuda Paiter, Rabbi Yehuda Paters, Hada Amr. This tells us Hi hada, this is the very same thing, and the Rabbi Yehuda holds the same thing, whether the higher level of Tumah was first, and only then the lower level of Tumah came, or if it was the other way around, this person does not need to be taival for their carry in order to daven and learn. Hadron Lach Misha Meisai, Mazel Tov for finishing the third parak of Maseches Brachos. Just like we were Zecharia to finish this parak together, we should be Zecharia to finish the entire Masechah together, and all of Shas Yerushalmi together. Now moving on to a brand new parak. Now up until now, for the most part, we were talking about Kriya Shema. Now we're going to move on to talk about Tefillah, about Shema and Esrei. The Mishnah tells us Tefillah HaShachar, this is what we would call Shachris, and Chatzos. One's allowed to daven Shachris only up until Chatzos. Rabbi Yehuda says at Arba Shais only up until 4 hours of the day. Now what's the machlokes Tanakam and Rabbi Yehuda? The machlokes is up until when is the carbon tamid shel Shachar allowed to be brought? The Tanakama, which is the Chum, hold that the carbon tamid shel Shachar was brought up until Chatzos. Therefore one's allowed to daven Shachris, which is connected the tamid shel Shachar, up until Chatzos. And Rabbi Yehuda says is only brought up until Arba Shais. Now what exactly is this Arba Shais? So Arba Shais means up until a third of the day. In halacha, the day and night are broken up into 12-hour increments called Shais Zmaniyos, and these are halachic hours which vary in length depending on how many daylight hours there actually are. So up until 4 hours means up until a third of the day. Now moving on, Tfilas HaMincha, Mincha is allowed to be davened ad ha'erev up until the evening, which means up until nighttime. Rabbi Yehuda says ad Plaga Mincha until Plaga Mincha. Now it's Plaga Mincha, so there's two different Mincha times, Mincha Gedayla and Mincha Ketana. Mincha Gedayla is earlier, it's a half hour after Chatzos, which would be 6.5 hours into the day, and it's called Mincha Gedayla because there's still a lot left to the day, as in what Yaakov told the shepherds, Oid Hayoim Gadol. Now Mincha Ketana is 9.5 hours into the day, which means that from Mincha Ketana there's another 2.5 hours left till the end of the day, and Plaga Mincha is that remaining 2.5 hours split in half. So Plaga Mincha, or as we call it, Plag, is 1.25 hours before nighttime. The Mishnah continues, Tfilas HaErev, which is referring to Ma'ariv, Ein Lo Keva, it does not have a set time. One can daven Ma'ariv L'Chatchila the whole night, and Mishal Musafin, Kol Hayoim, a person can daven Musaf all day, but L'Chatchila, a person should be davening Musaf after Shachris, because Shachris is Tadir, Shachris is more often than Musaf, we don't have Musaf every day, and we know Tadir V'She'enu Tadir, Tadir Kaidem, and therefore one should be davening Shachris before Musaf, but Musaf could be davened the whole day. And now the Gemara just talks about Tefillah as a whole. Tfilas HaShachar, Chatzos, V'chulu. Now we have a brayso, Ksibit says in the pasuk, La'avas Hashem L'keichem, L'avde b'chol levavchem, U'b'chol nafshechem, to love Hashem your God, and to serve Him with all your heart and with all your soul. Now we ask, V'chiesh Avodah B'leiv, is there Avodah in the heart? Avodah is in the Beis HaMikdash. It's something physical. It's not something in the heart. And we say, yes, there is. Ve'ezu, zu tefillah. This is tefillah. This is davening. And we see similarly that the word avodah is referring to tefillah because the king told Daniel before he threw him into the lion's den, Elohach di ant palach leb tedira, the God that you constantly serve, hu yeshes vinach, He should save you. Now, Chayesh Pulchan Bavel, was there avodah in Bavel? Did they do any sort of service in Bavel? We know that the only service that's done is in Eretz Yisrael, in the Beis HaMikdash. So what's this service being referred to in the pasuk? Ve'ezu, zu tefillah. This is referring to tefillah. Another thing about davening, you might think that one can daven all three of them together. Wake up in the morning, daven Shachris Mincha Ma'ariv, and you're patur, you're done for the whole day. And we say that's not true. Pirish b'Daniel, it says very clearly by Daniel, v'zimnin telasa b'yayma hu barich al berchayi v'gaimer, and 3 times during the day he would fall to his knees and daven, and by saying in 3 times, that implies it was 3 separate times, not all at the same time. If it was all at the same time, it wouldn't say 3 times. We're going to stop here for the day, pick up tomorrow, continue to talk about davening, specifically Shemana Esrei. For now, everyone should have a wonderful day.